Hey, today we're going to talk about standard form of a linear equation. Previously we've spoken about slope-intercept form of a linear equation. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. A standard form is just the other common way that linear equations get written. And we also did some work with point-slope form. Point-slope form, though, is really just a method by which you could write an equation in slope-intercept form. Any linear equation has one slope-intercept equation. It has an infinite number of point-slope equations. And if you write it in standard form, you can get two different ways to write it. So what we're going to do today is just introduce standard form. Standard form is ax plus by equals c. Now, if you look at this and contrast it to what we've done with slope-intercept, in standard form you put the variable terms on the same side and the constant on the other. So in this case you got the ax plus by equals c. So you have an x term and a y term both on the left. You have a constant term on the right. The a, b, and c are all real numbers. So the coefficient of x and the coefficient of y are real numbers, and the constant c is also a real number. And the other criteria is that a and b are not both allowed to be 0. And if they both were 0, we'd have no x and we'd have no y. And many of the problems that you're going to have to do on standard form are going to ask you to write it in standard form using integer coefficients. And so you're going to have to kind of remember that. So even though it says that a, b, and c are real numbers, many of the problems we're going to do are going to ask for integer coefficients when you put it in standard form, and that means that you need to make sure that a and b will be integers. And what that's going to require you to do is generally multiply by some number to eliminate all fractions. On this page what we're going to do is take standard form ax plus by equals c, and we're just going to solve it for y. So when we do that, the first thing that you would do is subtract ax on each side. If you do that, then the left side is going to be just by, and the right side would be negative ax plus c. And after you do that, your second step is going to be divide by b, which is just the coefficient of y. So the first step, again, is just to subtract the x term. Whatever the x term is, move it to the other side. Now, sometimes that's going to be subtracting, and sometimes if the x term is negative, that would actually be adding to get it to the other side. And then on the second step here, the divide by b is basically just divide by the coefficient of y. So we're going to take by, and we're going to divide it by what that coefficient b. And on the other side, I have two terms, the x term and the constant, and you have to divide them both by the coefficient. And now you just simplify both things. So we get y is equal to negative a over b x plus c over b. And then if you take this and you contrast it with slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b, and you can see that your slope, m, is just that negative a over b. And your y-intercept, lowercase b, is just c over b. And so if you have an equation that's in standard form, what we've been doing every single time to find the slope and the y-intercept is we've been taking that equation, we've been solving it for y, when in reality, we could just look, because it doesn't matter what a, b, and c are. Every time you solve for y, you do the same thing. You subtract the x term or add it, and then you divide everything by the coefficient of b. And so if you look down here, slope is just opposite of A over B, and the y-intercept is just C over B. It's always going to be that case. It doesn't matter what A, B, and C are. So now on the next page, I give two examples that ask you to just find the slope and the y-intercept of the following equations. Now, on the first one, 2x plus 5y equals 15. A is just 2. B is 5. And C is 15. And remember from the page before, we just said that M is the opposite of A over B, and B is just C over B. Well, now that I know what A and B are, it's very easy for me to just say M is the opposite of A, which is 2, over B, which is 5. Well, the opposite of 2/5 is negative 2/5. I just found what the slope was. The y-intercept is just C over B. C is 15 and B is 5. And so the y-intercept is just 3. Well, so we just found the slope and the y-intercept, and we did that by just identifying the values of A, B, and C. AX plus BY equals C. A was 2, B was 5, C was 15. And by identifying those, I did the same thing that I would have done if I had solved it for y. And if you solve 2x plus 5y equals 15, if you solve that for y, subtract 2x on each side, negative 2x plus 15, divide by 5, negative 2/5 x plus 3. And there are, that's the slope we just found. That's the y-intercept we just found. And many of you could probably look at the equation and get that. And if we go to the second one, in this one, A is 8. This time B is negative 3. And C is 21. Same thing that we had here. M is the opposite of A over B. And the y-intercept is just C over B. And so we do the opposite of 8 over negative 3. And the y-intercept is going to be C over B. And so the slope, the opposite of negative 8/3 is a positive 8/3. And then 21 divided by negative 3 is negative 7. And that's the y-intercept. And so in this lesson, all we're really doing is introducing standard form. Okay, there's standard form, AX plus BY equals C, and talking about how any equation that's written in standard form, you can quickly and easily identify the slope and the y-intercept. Okay, number one, A is 2, B is 5. The opposite of 2/5 is negative 2/5. C over B, 15 over 5 is 3. You do the same thing for number 2, only now when you do A over B, it's negative 8/3, so the opposite of that is positive 8/3. And then the y-intercept is C over B, 21 over negative 3, negative 7. Now, in the next lesson, what we'll actually start doing is give you slope and y-intercept, and you will write the equations into standard form.